On the night of May 7th, 2026, Iran attacked 3 United States Navy ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. military intercepted all 3 attacks. No ships were hit. Within hours, American forces struck back, targeting what the Pentagon called Iranian military facilities responsible for the attack. Then, early on May 8th, the United Arab Emirates reported incoming missiles and drones. Its air defenses engaged. There were no immediate reports of damage. A ceasefire between the United States and Iran has technically been in place since April 8, 2026. You would not know it from the Strait of Hormuz right now. The conflict began on February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched strikes against Iran. The stated goal was to halt Iran's nuclear program, a program Washington and Tel Aviv had publicly vowed to stop. Within weeks, Iran responded by doing what it had long threatened, closing the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is the narrow channel between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. It is the single most important choke point for global energy. Roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through it. So does a significant share of liquefied natural gas and other petroleum products. When Iran closed it, hundreds of commercial vessels became bottled up inside the Persian Gulf, unable to reach open sea. Fuel prices spiked. The global economy rattled. The U.S., for its part, imposed a blockade on Iranian ports. A ceasefire was brokered and took hold on April 8th. In-person talks between the U.S. and Iran, hosted by Pakistan, followed. Those talks failed to produce a deal. On Thursday night, Iranian forces attacked 3 U.S. Navy ships in the strait. U.S. Central Command confirmed the interceptions and described the attacks as unprovoked. American forces retaliated, striking Iranian military facilities they said were directly responsible. Iranian state media reported exchanges of fire with what it called enemy units on Keshem Island, an Iranian island in the strait. It also reported loud noises and continuous defensive fire over western Tehran late Thursday night. On Friday morning, the UAE's defense ministry confirmed an inbound missile and drone strike. It advised residents not to approach, photograph, or touch any debris from air interceptions. There were no reported casualties or structural damage. President Donald Trump addressed the violence from Washington. He told a reporter from ABC that the retaliatory U.S. strikes were, in his words, just a love tap. They have to understand, if it doesn't get signed, they're going to have a lot of pain. Donald Trump, U.S. President Trump said the ceasefire was holding and that a deal could come any day. He also said Iran had, quote, trifled with us. Pakistan is serving as the key intermediary between Washington and Tehran. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said his government was in continuous contact with both sides, day and night, to stop the war and extend the ceasefire. Pakistani Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar spoke by phone Thursday with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. The Pakistani Foreign Ministry spokesperson Tahir Andrabi told reporters, "We expect an agreement sooner rather than later." He declined to give a timeline. On Thursday, Tehran confirmed it was examining the latest U.S. proposals for ending the war, delivered through Pakistan. Separately, direct talks between Israel and Lebanon were scheduled to resume in Washington on May 14th and 15th, according to a U.S. official. While the shooting continued, Iran moved to institutionalize its control over the strait in a way that alarmed global shipping. On Thursday, shipping data firm Lloyd's List Intelligence reported that Iran had created a new government agency called the Persian Gulf Strait Authority. According to Lloyd's, the agency is positioning itself as the only valid authority to grant ships permission to transit the strait. It emailed Lloyd's an application form for vessels seeking passage. This formalizes a system Iran has been running during the war, vetting ships, deciding which ones pass, and, in at least some cases, taxing their cargo. Maritime law experts say this violates the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which requires countries to allow peaceful transit through their territorial waters. The US has threatened sanctions against any company that pays tolls to Iran. The United States and its Gulf allies are pushing for a United Nations Security Council resolution condemning Iran's control of the strait and threatening sanctions. A previous resolution calling for the strait to reopen was vetoed by Russia and China. The economic consequences are concrete. South Korea, which last year imported more than 60% of its crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz, has already capped domestic prices on gasoline and petroleum products to limit the damage. On Friday, one oil tanker that successfully transited the strait in mid-April arrived off the South Korean coast, carrying 1 million barrels of crude destined for the HD Hyundai Oil Bank refinery. One tanker, 1 million barrels. That is what getting through the strait looks like right now. The Iran-US ceasefire has technically held since April 8th. But what April 8th produced was a pause, not a settlement. The core disputes, Iran's nuclear program, the Strait of Hormuz, the role of Iran-backed groups across the region, remain entirely unresolved. Both sides are still firing. Both sides are still talking. And between the two sits Pakistan, a nuclear-armed country that is simultaneously trying to prevent a broader war while managing its own fragile relationship with Iran. Trump says a deal could come any day. Tehran says it is studying the latest proposals. Neither side has moved publicly toward a framework that addresses what the war was actually fought over. In the meantime, the strait remains effectively closed. Fuel prices remain elevated. Hundreds of ships remain stuck. And the Persian Gulf Strait Authority is now officially open for business, charging tolls on one of the world's most critical waterways. That is where things stand on May 8th, 2026. The ceasefire is holding, barely.